You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to another Colts Blue Zone podcast. Here in studio alongside Joe Hopkins and Mike Chappell. I'm Dave Griffiths. Glad to have you along. We have 17 days, guys. Less than 3 weeks until the Colts kick off September 11th in Houston against the Texans. We are counting down the days. Today, as we tape this podcast on Thursday, was the last day of training camp in Westfield. And the Colts will take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers inside Lucas Oil Stadium Saturday night, 7:30 kickoff. You can watch that locally on CBS 4 here in central Indiana. The first two games were on Fox 59. This one will be on CBS 4. And pregame with us at 7 p.m. Saturday evening, also on CBS 4 with the Colts Blue Zone pregame show. Guys, a whole heck of a lot went on this week, and not entirely in the good variety. We open up with the news of the week. That is punter Rigoberto Sanchez suffered a torn Achilles tendon in his kicking leg, and it happened while he was running sprints with the entire team at the end of practice. This is, of course, as all things do in today's era or age, ignited a firestorm of many, many different ways, Chap, that we can direct this conversation, from should punters run sprints to how valuable is Rigo. But we begin with the fact that just in general, the Colts are getting rid of a guy who has been a very valuable piece of the special teams unit. You can certainly debate the value of an elite punter on your squad as opposed to an elite wide receiver, for example. But nevertheless, you cannot deny that Rigoberto has had an impact on this team for the better over the last 5 years of his career, 6 years, however long he's been in the league now. I think it's 5 years.
Yeah. And whenever Frank Reich talks about things, it's like the hidden yardage. And that's the yardage you gain on field position, on kickoffs. You know, one thing, he's outstanding at touchbacks on kickoffs, but more so when you've got a good coverage unit like the Colts have had, they'll kick to the 2-yard line and tackle you at the 18. Well, there's 7 yards. And you think that's not a big deal, but look at the stats, and it is. You're saving a first down, and I'm not sure there's many punters better at directional punting and pinning teams inside the 5. And again, a lot of that's on your coverage team, but it's also on your kicker, on your punter. So, and by the way, he's your holder too. So this is that three-way guy. They bring in Matt Hawk. Tell me how you get Hawk out of that Hawk, spelling, but I don't know. But you know, it's like we talked to Bubba Ventrone, and he says, we're not going to replace him. We're going to bring somebody in, but you don't replace what you lose. It's funny how too many people devalue the kicking game, kickers and punters, and then you need one. I go back to the all-time kick game when the Colts lost to San Diego in the playoffs. And was it Cyphers? Mike Cyphers killed him. Just killed him by dropping the ball inside the 3-yard line like a dozen times. So this will be a loss. And I'm not going to say it's going to cost him a game at some point during the season. That's extreme. But it's a big loss. One thing that I found surprising, and I guess it just hit me, is when they made the roster move to bring Hawk on, why didn't they put Rigo on IR? I don't understand that. They cut Jake Verite as opposed to putting Rigo on IR. Now, if you put him on IR now, he's done for the season, but this is an Achilles. So you would, you would think he'd be done for the season. Well, in your hope of hopes, are you thinking, well, maybe if we make the push into the playoffs and he's ready to come back in late January? I don't know. It may be making too much out of whatever, and maybe he's going to be on IR on the final cuts. It seems hard to me to believe they're going to carry him on the 53 on Tuesday and then put him on IR so that he can come back.
Right.
But that's minutia. But they will miss it. And then, again, the other good news is that Kwity Paye is okay. I mean, a bone bruise, but that could have been a lot worse. When we saw it happen on Wednesday, it looked worse. So it's bad news and semi-good news out of camp.
At least a little bit better news with Kwity Paye. Back to Sanchez, Joe. Chap touched on it, that along with being the punter, he's your kickoff specialist. He's your holder for field goals. There's a whole lot that he has done in the special teams game, and the Colts have been known over the past decade of being an elite special teams squad. This year, there was really a bit of a transition there because they let go of a couple guys like a Matt Adams, who has been a stalwart of special teams for a couple of years, a George Odom, who's been a special teams stalwart for the past couple of years, Jordan Glasgow. Like, they were bringing in young guys to be really the next wave of this young special teams crop. You have to rely in those situations on your leaders, on guys who have been here for a while, on guys like Sanchez. Now you have to break in an entirely new punter and holder and kickoff specialist to this. Sure, Hot Rod has kicked off in the past, and Bubba has said that he's done better at it, but also added there's a reason that Rigo was doing it is because he was the best one on the team. So now you're throwing in just a little bit. You just lose some of your leadership in a year that you were trying to bring along some young guys to bring everyone else up to that level that he was. It just brings everything else down a little bit just in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and I don't think Sanchez has received like the national recognition with like a Pro Bowl or anything. But since 2017, he's been Pro Football Focus's 5th highest graded punter. Like, he's been a really, really high-end punter for this team. And like Mike talked about, the hidden yards, how many games come down to one score? Most of them. And so every little bit of advantage you can get is something that the Colts have lost with this injury. Matt Hawk, thank you for telling me before the show.
That's what we're here for.
I'd rather have a hawk than a hack. But
wouldn't we all?
This is your punter.
Yeah, exactly. He's not a bad punter. I mean, he's been in the league just as long as Sanchez. Punted for the Bills and 4 years prior to that for Miami. I kind of compared a lot of their statistics, and they're pretty similar on most things. The biggest difference is Hawk, a lot more of his punts fall into the end zone than Sanchez, who was just so good at getting it inside the 20 there. But they're definitely going to miss Sanchez. The one positive spin I'll put on this, not to kind of disrespect Sanchez or what he's done, he's excellent. It's a huge loss. But if I was going to pick one position to lose my starter for probably the year, it might be punter.
I understand that completely. Like, I completely get it. And
like, if you're going to tell me it's August 25th and the
you're
Colts
going to lose
have
one of
lost
your starters,
a punter and a third-string tight end to this
Right.
point, I'll take that.
yeah, I hear you. Because of just the situation they're in, they can go out and they can get Matt Hawk, who is just cut, who is a veteran.
Just cut Monday.
Exactly. For the punt god over there in Buffalo, the rookie coming in.
It's hard to compete with a rookie kicking 80-yard punts.
Yeah. Who's a lot cheaper than you are, probably, or at least a little bit cheaper than you are. But yeah, Joe, you touched on it, just the touchback difference. Yeah, their average is very similar. Their number of punts down inside the 20 is similar. Hawk has almost doubled the number of touchbacks Sanchez has punted. Sanchez has 6 over the last 3 years. Hawk has 11. And like you said, Rigo has just been really good at keeping the ball down inside the 20. And, of course, when you have gunners like Ashton Doolin or George Odom on the other side, especially Doolin, who's been exceptional at that in recent years. And I don't know if he's going to have that same role this year because they're going to ask more of him on the offensive end of things. That it will be different. I'm thinking, I don't know if you guys remember, but a couple years ago when it was a late season game against the Giants and Rigo just downed it inside the 5, and there was a guy, Chris Milton, I believe, was the corner who made the play to keep it there. And then the Giants were stopped. They had to punt it away, and the Colts were able to drive and kick and make the touchdown. Like, that play really helped them win the game. So, Chap, like you say, you're not going to go as far as to say that losing Rigo will cost the Colts a game at this point in the season. I'm not going to go that far either and say it definitely will, but the possibility is there that it absolutely does. You know? So we'll just have to watch for this year to see exactly how much of an impact this is. But you can't just toss it away and say there will certainly be no impact because it's just the punter and you bring a guy out who's bagging groceries at Wegmans and you'll be fine.
It just puts more pressure on the defense and offense to execute. And the special teams kind of gave you that extra boost, that extra bonus, or could swing in the opposite direction. It means you have to do more. The offense and the defense will probably have to do more now this year because of Sanchez's injury.
Chap, you mentioned Kwity Paye went down with an injury on Wednesday, and it happened right in front of all of us. It was 11-on-11 drills. So unlike the Sanchez injury, which happened like at the end of practice on the far field, and all the writers, we were all walking back down to get ready for interviews with players and coaches after. So like nobody saw it. Everyone saw what happened to Kwity Paye. Just an 11-on-11 drills. right at the beginning of a play, basically. He goes down, grabbing his left knee, and it did not look good. He was down for a little while, but he was able to get up, walk off on his own power, albeit gingerly. We learned today it's a bone bruise for Kwity Paye, certainly not as serious as it initially you could have thought it was, but nevertheless, Chap, he's not going to play in the preseason finale, and optimism that he will be out there week one, which is, like I said, infinitely better than it looked in the first 15 seconds of the immediate aftermath of what happened.
Yeah, he's got 2 weeks to get himself right, and
17 days, like I just said.
Right. So it's funny when you see these injuries, you sort of, from having seen him so many times, you sort of get a gauge, and it didn't look good because he stayed down. Players don't stay down; they just don't. And it was a little more encouraging when he walked off. He limped off,
right?
And even more encouraging when he didn't go into the locker room.
He stayed on the sideline.
He stayed on the sidelines. They put a wrap on it. And if it's significant, teams know. Mm-hmm. You just know.
There's so much that you can do before imaging these days that give you a good idea.
Right. It's like when Rigo had the Achilles. You know. I mean, tell me the last time you heard somebody had an Achilles and the MRI's fine.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Same with Drew Ogletree with the ACL.
Correct. And that looked bad, and they had to help him off.
Yeah.
So it looked good. So I think things are certainly progressing to where he's probably on target to play the opener. We'll see. But he was at practice today and standing around. He had a sleeve on his left leg. But if it is significant, you're not around.
We've seen more of Kwity Paye than we have Dennis Kelly's post-injury.
He
was out there. Oh, hey.
Proof of life.
There we go. At long last. One day I'm finally not out of practice.
I kept telling him, I said, I need proof of life. And there's 73 now, unless they switched jerseys, because I almost tweeted out that it was encouraging to see Isaiah Rodgers out there practicing because he was in concussion protocol.
Right.
Well, he was out there. Well, his jersey was. Tony Brown put his jersey on. So I almost had the mistake. One guy did, but no. But with Kwity, it's encouraging to see, and to me the signs are that he'll be ready to play.
Yeah.
Easy for me to say. But we had talked maybe even in the last week to where this had been a very uneventful camp injury-wise. And, boy, all of a sudden it was boom, 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 Ogletree, Rigo, and then Kwity. So they still came out of camp relatively healthy. Mm-hmm. I still want to see Shaq Leonard practice.
That'd be nice.
Until I do, I'm concerned. But by and large, it was an uneventful camp, which is a good thing.
A couple roster moves that the Colts have made. They needed to cut down their rosters a few more at the start of this week. DJ Montgomery, Kavion Patton, Alex Millette, CJ Verdell no longer on the team. And then, as also Chap alluded to earlier, Jake Verity, the kicker, has been waived. He was waived to make room for Matt Hawk on the roster. So, Joe.
Hot Rod.
That's right. Rodrigo Blankenship will be the Colts kicker yet again. He's had a pretty good training camp, but, Chap, that hasn't been his problem in the past.
Yeah, he was perfect last year in camp.
Yeah. So, at this point, like, you're happy that he's kicked well in camp. And you're happy that earlier this week they had an end-of-game scenario, and he hit three of 4. And I think two or three of them were beyond 50. Like
54 and 56, I think.
Like, you're happy. But it doesn't matter right now. It just doesn't matter for him because he's done this before, and then you get to the season, and he can't hit from over 50 consistently.
I wish I had a better feeling, and I just don't. I'm nervous.
Doesn't this feel like a kind of a make or break year for Hot Rod in the Colts?
Probably.
Like if he really steps up and establishes himself,
right? Which is what you want.
Which is what you want. But if he has another year like last year, the year prior, where it's kind of iffy on those long kicks, you got to think they go into the offseason trying to find someone else.
But they did this offseason with Verte. I mean, I realized he had no resume other than kicking behind Justin Tucker. But yeah, that's you've got so many issues to deal with in building your roster and all this. And the last thing you want to do is worry about your kicker, your punter and your kicker. So I wish I felt more at ease. I don't, and I won't until he shows it in the regular season. You know, keep in mind again, he's an 83% kicker in the regular season, and he's not very good. He has not been good from distance. So it's his now we'll see how he responds to it.
Yep. I looked this up actually recently. I went back the last 10 years and just looked at the kickers on Super Bowl winning teams and just looked at their percentages. What they because I was curious since obviously kicker's been a big deal for the Colts this preseason. And over the last 10 years, the average when you lump them all together is an 86% field goal kicker make, and this doesn't include like what Rigo's problem, not Rigo, sorry, Hot Rod's problem has been, which is like 45 or higher. I just did, in general, I didn't dig into the minutia too much about the long field goals, which I think if you looked into all these guys, they would have better averages beyond 45 yards than Rodrigo has had. But just overall, it's about 86%. And Rodrigo's first year, his rookie year, he was right around there. I think he was 85 or 86%. So, like last year, he took a serious step back to about 78% from kicking field goals, which is not good, no. And like when you go beyond, actually 11, 12 years ago, you finally hit guys when the New York Giants won the Super Bowl. Lawrence Tynes was their kicker. He hit 79%. 12 years ago was Mason Crosby, who had a really bad year that year with the Packers, if you all remember, when he hit 78% of his field goals. But since then, the lowest has been Jake Elliott, was a rookie with the Eagles. He hit 84% of his field goals. That's the lowest over the last 10 years. And the best was Steven Gostkowski one year, hit nearly 95% of his field goals.
If you're going to make a deep run,
yeah,
you're going to have that field goal late. We go back to McPherson last year.
Oh, jeez.
That's why the Bengals made the Super Bowl.
Yep.
He was it 11 or 13 from 50? From 50.
Ludicrous.
That's crazy.
Great numbers.
And that was something of an aberration. But I go back to, I realize he may be the best kicker of all time, but Vinatieri, the Colts Super Bowl season, they beat Baltimore 15-6.
Yeah.
That's 5 field goals. So you're by and large, you go to look at teams and they won a game because of their field goal kicker. Mm-hmm. The Colts lost to Buffalo 2 years ago, and Hot Rod misses a 33-yarder. Now, it was early in the third quarter, so who knows? But that's in a 3-point game. You've got to make your clutch kicks. You just have to.
The Colts on Tuesday will cut the roster down to 53. It is a big cut. I believe it's at 81 right now with the extra one for the international exemption with Marcel Dabo. We got any bold takes on who is going to make the roster, who doesn't? I know, Chap, you're going to have some work coming out later this week about, or maybe even for our Blue Zone pregame show, about some guys on the bubble there. So any guys what we're in particular watching in this final preseason game whose futures with the Colts might be on the line?
Ben Banigou. We had this discussion last year.
This is a repeat over and over again. Same guy.
And yeah, I think there's 3 or 4 guys. And then I think what's interesting is to look at Des Patman and Mike Strawn. I think they keep 6. I think it's going to be 6 wideouts and 3 tight ends with Ogletree going down. Mm-hmm. And then everybody's flavor of the month is Sam Ehlinger. We were talking in the press room because sometimes we get bored. And the question is...
It's always dangerous when we start talking in the press room.
It is. But do you keep him on 53 or do they value him? They do. They do value Sam. Or do you expose him to waivers and put him on your practice squad? And exposing him to waivers means he's a free agent. So I tend to think they value him, but not with a roster spot to make sure you don't lose him. I just don't see how, with every roster spot being valuable, how you carry a third kicker or a third quarterback who you know isn't going to play,
right?
Barring the unforeseen. But and one thing we need to keep in mind, and it's easy to forget, is that with the 16-player practice squad, it's a different animal now. It's almost like a 69-man roster because you can call up players. I think it's is it 3 players on game day, 2 or 3 players on game day.
Right.
You can protect 4 starting on Tuesday. So, like a DeMichael Harris, if you look at him as your kick returner, if you don't want to expose Isaiah Rodgers, I think it's safe to say you can put Harris on the practice squad and then elevate him for game day. But with Ehlinger, do you think you can do that, or will somebody claim him? Does a team out there believe he could be a viable backup? I don't know that another team takes him as a developmental guy. So he to me, he's the most interesting one. And then the two receivers, I think they both make the roster. But there will be some tough decisions.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Do you think the Colts could trade Ellinger and get anything
I don't
for
think
him?
so. I don't think they want to do that. Like, I don't think they want to get rid of him. I think they want him to be their backup for
I'll
a
take
long
the
time.
other approach. What are you going to get for him?
Yeah.
I mean, I and this
Like,
is
who's going to give you something to make him their backup quarterback? Because they're not. No other team's going to trade for a number 3 quarterback.
I just think that locally we have a tendency to overvalue guys. You know, I'll mention his name, Swag. So Chad Kelly had the buzz about him in preseason, and Sam is much more of an accomplished quarterback.
Yes.
He is. I just don't know that there's trade value. But again, is there a team just saying, hey, if the Colts dump this guy, he's better than what we've got, and that might be the case.
It's possible. For another team to make Ellinger their they wouldn't sign him to be a third quarterback. I wouldn't think they would
That's
sign
what I'm saying.
Ellinger to be a backup.
You don't sign him to be in 2 years. He might be, because even Sam told us when there was the hubbub about is he going to beat out Nick Foles? No.
Yeah, no.
But even Sam said after working with Tom House, he views this as that was a 2-year program, and he looked at it his first 3 years as a learning process. So he knows. Because keep in mind, Ryan signed for 2 years, and Nick Foles is signed for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, I think these guys truly value Sam. I really do, and they think that he's got the chance to develop into a viable backup quarterback. I just don't know, to me, if that translates into a spot on the 53.
Yeah, I think the decisions to get down to 53, some offensive line and defensive line choices are going to be really intriguing. With offensive line, I don't think you have a wealth of guys that you want to keep. That's the
I
thing.
can't find 9 to say, boy, 8
No.
and 9, I really need.
Exactly. I think that you might stick at 8, even though they've kept 10 in the past, just because there isn't enough depth there to be like, hey, this guy deserves a spot. Like, you'll have 2 backup tackles probably in Ryman and Kelly, and then you'll have Will Fries in the middle. And
then
after
who?
that, and then who? Like, do you really want to keep French as a backup center? Well, you really don't need to, because Danny Pinner can slide over there.
Then you lose your French fries
Well,
combo.
it's unfortunate it's not gonna be there. But seriously, I don't think anybody else is worthy of a roster spot. So if you only keep 8 offensive linemen, that opens up some spots elsewhere.
But maybe you keep 8, and then on the 53.
Yes.
You're going to have 2 or 3 on the practice squad.
Oh, yes.
But maybe someone dumps a player on the final cuts at offensive
Tackle
line
or guard.
Guard. If you're convinced Kelly can be the 4th guy.
Yeah.
But you need an interior guy and a tight end.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying they keep 3 tight ends. Well, maybe they find somebody, on the waiver wire. It's rare when somebody has a glut at a position, because there's just not that many quality players that are let go. But I could see a lineman or a tight end brought in. I really could.
I think defensive line, as well, especially the interior, is intriguing because R.J. McIntosh and Chris Williams are veterans who had spots last year, especially from time to time on rosters. And they've just been hurt throughout this camp. And they just got back on the field, this week. Is that enough for them to earn a spot on the 53? Or do you want to still keep your rookies, guys like Eric Johnson, Curtis Brooks? Ifedio Denibo has had a pretty good training camp. Same with Klein on the outside. Has that been enough to knock a Ben Banigou off? You're certainly not going to say goodbye to Tyquan Lewis or Dio Odangbo.
He's so valuable.
Tyquan is
so
great. He's had a really good camp. It's another one that right away that something's not good. Getting back to our discussion earlier, just trainer goes out there is like, "Yep, your patella. It's not where it's supposed to be."
Right.
So anyway, I think just the backups in the defensive interior and then the offensive line, I just can't see them keeping certainly more than 9, and I think 8 is much
They
bigger
want to keep
possibility.
9. I really think they do.
I think they
I
do,
don't
but-
know that they have 9.
Yeah, here right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we could see another late August, early
Yes.
September trade from
Yes.
Chris Ballard where he gives a
Like last year,
sixth-round pick.
got Matt Pryor.
Exactly. And look
Yes.
how valuable Matt Pryor turned out to be for this team.
And that's what you want.
Yep.
You want a Matt Pryor who can come in and play. I think he played 3 spots last year. Played well.
Yep. Really
So,
valuable.
so again, that's I've always said that the cruelest day is cut day, where somebody makes it and he calls home and says, "Hey, Mom, I made it, and then the next day they let you go because they found somebody better on the waiver wire. So, and if we found out anything about Chris Ballard is he's always willing to change the roster, make it better. He doesn't care when it is or how you get the guy. So it's always going to be fluid. And again, like I say, keep in mind a 16-player practice squad, which you can start accumulating your practice squad on Wednesday, I believe it is. Generally, it's a lot of your own guys because you've worked with them and you know them. And we're going to see 2 or 3 offensive linemen, 2 or 3 defensive linemen, 2 or 3 wideouts, corners.
Hopefully a quarterback named Sam Ellinger.
Probably, and a couple of running backs.
Yeah.
So, and again, with the idea that they were as active as anybody last year in bringing guys up and playing them on game days. So it's really interesting to see how they view this and how they handle it.
A group of Colts have made the NFL 100. That is an NFL player vote determining the top 100 players in the league. Kenny Moore was the first one to make the list at number 82 overall. DeForest Buckner is the next to show up as they're counting down from 100 to 1 at 66. Quentin Nelson at 26. Players 20 through 1 are the only ones left to be announced. They will be announced on Sunday, and we know that there are 2 Colts remaining in that group. It is Shaquille Leonard and Jonathan Taylor. And I think, Joe, we were just talking about it. Quentin Nelson's the top guard on the list. We don't think there's any other off-ball linebackers like Darius Leonard is. Micah Parsons is technically still on the list, but he played a good deal of defensive end. So you got the top guard in the NFL 100. You got the top off-ball linebacker in the NFL 100. And it's certainly going to be interesting to see where Jonathan Taylor winds up, especially in relation to Derrick Henry, because, well, JT's the reigning NFL rushing champion, but if Henry was healthy last year, that at least would have been a battle.
That would have been fun to watch.
Yeah, if not Henry being the number 1. So really intrigued to see where JT ends up on that list.
Yeah, I got to think it's JT just because he's done it more recently. But what would Henry finish, like 8th in rushing yards?
And he missed half the season.
And he missed half the year. So he was just on a crazy tear to begin the
Don't you
season.
think if he had played, he would have won the rushing title?
I think he would have, yes.
Because they would have
he was way ahead of Jonathan Taylor when he went out.
And he would have they would have run him so much more than what Frank did with JT.
Yep.
And that's not to smack JT.
No,
one of the all-time,
tremendous
not one of
season.
the best running or game or season by a running back in Colts history, and they've got some Hall of Famers there. But I want to see how, building off of this, I want to see how Henry plays this year. He's coming off foot injury, and at some point, running backs, you see the wall, and the wall wins.
It always does eventually. But yeah, good to see Kenny Moore on this list, getting his due at nickel corner, making the NFL top 100.
Could he get a placard?
Not just a nickel corner, Kenny, if you're listening.
He could take a placard and maybe put 82 on it and walk in front of Chris Ballard.
Maybe.
You think that would help for contract extension or not?
I'm glad I'm really glad that storyline has faded very much into the background. Has been a complete non-issue.
I think Kenny was right.
Yeah.
To make his point. And
that's fine.
And then he was right to say okay.
To show up.
Right.
And to practice. And I think personally, Chris Ballard was right not to extend him because you got 2 years left on the deal, and that just opens the floodgates. There's just so very little you could do. As much as you love Kenny, as Chris has always said, y'all know what I think about Kenny. He loves him just as much as a lot of Colts fans do. But
they paid him early.
Yep, man, it's just not the time to do it. Yeah. What does Hancock Health's membership in the Mayo Clinic Care Network mean for you? It means our independent health network now has access to the knowledge and resources of the world leader in medicine. It means your Hancock Health doctor can now consult with Mayo Clinic specialists to confirm a diagnosis or treatment plan. And it means that together, we're making health possible for you. Learn more about our new clinical collaboration at hancockregional.org/Mayo Clinic. The Colts and the Lions met each other last weekend inside Lucas Oil Stadium. It was a 1-point Lions victory Saturday afternoon, 27-26. But out of all these storylines that I thought were interesting, we'll get to Ellinger, and we've touched on him already in this podcast. But the battle between Des Patman and Mike Strawn was really very much on display in this game. I don't know exactly how many wide receivers the Colts are going to take, but the top 4 spots are entrenched. Pittman, Campbell, Alec Pierce, Ashton Doolin. Those guys are making the roster. Those are your top 4 wide receivers. After that, there's really a group of four other guys battling for 1 or 2 spots. It is Strawn and Patman, and then Kiki Kuti, who's been out there on a lot of kick returns. He shows you some value there in the return game. And then DeMichael Harris, who's been injured for a lot of camp, but also has that value through kick returns as well. Mike Strawn, guys, is the most intriguing of all these prospects, just because he's on the all-airport team, which is how I've heard it referred to all times. When your team is getting off the bus or your team is walking through the airport, those are the guys that make people turn heads.
They're the ones you put in front of the line.
Yes.
As you're getting off.
Mike Strawn makes people turn heads,
right,
because he is a physical specimen. He is big, he is strong, he is fast. Chris Ballard, it was Frank Reich last year who just admitted Strawn was not ready to play.
Correct.
In spite of a very good and head-turning preseason. I wonder if he is ready to play, at least in a partial role, and that earns him a spot on the 53 this year.
I think so. If I had to pick one or the other, I'd pick Strawn. Keep in mind, he missed the first 3 weeks of camp, I believe it was, and he's clear because he had knee procedure.
And we have said, and I still stand by it, that his injury this offseason was really bad for him.
Sure.
Because he could have developed a lot more, because I don't think he did anything throughout the entire offseason program, and then the first 3 weeks of training camp as well. So it was still bad. If he makes the roster, that's a really, really significant step forward for him.
Well, because I thought, and we talked to him about that, did you see time passing you by? And he said, well, sort of. Well, the thing is that worked in his favor is none of those guys you mentioned stepped up.
Yeah.
Patman had a very, very quiet camp. He got hurt. Was it against Buffalo or was it against
I thought it was against Buffalo. Because,
it may have been.
Yeah,
so he misses time. So it's not like he came back and, boy, I've got so much space to pick up on the gap between the other guys.
Right.
And then he comes off Papa, and he's just playing.
Yep.
They threw him out there, and he had a good 3 days, 2 against the Lions, and then the game wasn't too big for him on Saturday night. So I think he would be your – if I'm putting these guys in a pecking order, he's 5 and Patman is 6. Patman had the big play, the 50-yard touchdown, which he got behind.
He fell backwards.
I was backpedaling 10 yards.
Yeah.
And what's funny is we'll bring up Sam again and how he's worked with Tom House and he has a stronger arm and this, that, and the other. Well, he underthrew Patman on the play.
He was rolling out to the opposite side, to his left side.
So you're going to defend him now?
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm throwing all the information out there.
Right. So, but again, these are the tough decisions. And until Ogletree went down, I thought they kept 5 receivers. Because keep in mind, Nyheim Hines is he's got a chair in both rooms.
A wide receiver, right.
He's got a chair in both rooms.
Yep.
So, I mean, he's still a he's still a running back. I mean, he's not.
Let's not take it that far.
Right. But he's going to get a ton of work, and that does sort of ease your concerns at receiver a little. Although I still think with the injury, barring any additions through waivers or whatever, that you keep 3 tight ends and 6 wideouts, and I think Strawn and Patman both make it.
Patman caught 5 of 6 targets against the Lions, 103 yards and a touchdown. Strawn caught all 3 of his targets, 45 yards and a touchdown. Joe, that Strawn touchdown, it was funny. Watching it live, I thought it was offensive pass interference, but then you saw the replay, and Strawn, I thought, played it really well when I saw the replay because he just had his arm out, his forearm out, which you're allowed to do. Just watching it live, I thought the defender was so far away. I was like, Strawn must have just pushed off with his whole arm. No, Strawn's just big enough that only his forearm out there gave him a significant amount of room against that cornerback. He was able to go up and make a nice catch in the back of the end zone.
Yeah, Megastrawn is what they're calling him.
That's right. That's the thing. That's
I love
the name.
it. I've been all about him since they drafted him, and because that's when I learned about him.
Right. You're like, who is this guy?
But he's extremely athletic. He's got a higher ceiling than Patman. Does Patman play on kick coverage? Does he?
I'm not sure either. Well, neither one's played much of anything.
Okay, on special teams.
Right.
So they're not getting much special team.
But they need to.
Yeah.
That 5th and 6th receiver needs to play special teams.
Right. Bubba's going to be in the ear of Ballard and Frank Reich saying,
help.
If you're going to keep this guy,
right.
I need him. Yeah, he needs to be able to do something for me.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was wondering if that would play a role, but if neither really plays on kick coverage.
But they have to.
Yeah.
They're going to
They have to. And if they don't play at a high enough level, then that, like
Makes
you mentioned,
decision.
it diminishes your special teams value.
Yep. 100%.
So we'll just have to see on that. Mike, I like your note that you tweeted out. Patman was the first Colt to have 100 receiving yards in a preseason game.
Since Reggie.
Since Reggie Wayne in 2011. I was like, what was Reggie Wayne doing out there in 2011?
With who was the quarterback?
That would have been Painter, right?
Because I text Reggie. I said, congratulations. He said, who was the quarterback? Painter? I said, sadly.
Yeah.
Sadly.
I almost said Orlovsky, but that came a little later in the year. But, yeah, that was a very entertaining preseason game. Did either of you guys watch the Hard Knocks?
I didn't
past
know.
week?
Yeah.
I watched it last night. You would have thought the Lions won the Super Bowl.
Of course.
The way they were, and I get it. Dan Campbell's trying to change the culture and kind of switch things from being a losing team for so long. But I was like, my gosh, you would have thought the Lions just absolutely steamrolled us. They won by 1 point. So, but if you're interested in watching from a Colts perspective, don't. There's nothing really in there.
It's the miracle of television.
Yeah, it's just all Lions, which is, what the focus is anyway.
My favorite part, of course, you guys might already know what I'm going to say, or maybe some of
Your
our
boy.
fans, yes, are out there are going to know what I'm going to say, is what the NFL tweeted out, just the little video of my boy, Zaire Franklin.
Who's he John with?
It was Jamal Williams.
Yeah, battling Jamal Williams a couple times and winning rep after rep after rep against him. And then
I think he did have the jersey on the one.
no, I didn't see a flag. Okay, there was no flag out there on the field. But let's
I
not.
think he did win the two pass rush drills.
But I thought it was hilarious that Zaire, after that play in particular, when Williams is all upset, just takes the ball and punts it. Like, obviously that would have been a 15-yard penalty in a game, but man, like I almost died laughing when I saw him doing that. And then Williams is all upset. Zaire tweets out, "Man, saying that what a bum running back," or saying he's celebrating like he won the Super Bowl after losing 3 reps. Have fun crying during another losing season. Oh my gosh, Zaire coming off the top rope on this guy. We did interview Zaire actually this week. Our Chris Widlick sat down with him one-on-one, asked him about this whole back and forth. That's going to be on our Blue Zone pregame show Saturday night, 7 o'clock, leading into kickoff at 7:30. So if you're interested in what's more that Zaire had to say, check that out. But I thought that was awesome. It was hilarious, and of course, it's my guy. So I loved it. I love the John.
Yeah, I love that attitude, especially dog days of summer. It's training camp. You're finally going against someone other than your teammate. You're gonna get a little intense out there.
Yes, so that was awesome. A couple other things from that Colts-Lions game. There was some iffy line play, both sides of the ball. Joe, you bring up the Detroit rushed for 174 yards. The Colts only rushed for 30. If that happened during the regular season, it would spell disaster. With the entire second units out there, you can be like, okay, and that goes to our point we were saying earlier that the Colts really don't have a full second unit on the offensive line at all. But also, I think, Chap, that this year the Colts might be giving up some more rushing yards than they have in the recent past under Matt Eberflus. It just doesn't seem to be as much of a focus in Gus Bradley's system as stopping the run. As the Colts have been top 10 in the league the last, I think, 4 seasons in stopping the run.
But not 174.
No, that would be bad.
We talked to Nate Ollie about that, about how this might be one of the better starting defensive lines this team's had, and maybe depth-wise too. If Tyquan can be the backup and Dio and Afidi, then you're in pretty darn good shape. But he said, but 174, you can't rush the passer. You're never going to be rushing the passer.
Right.
But I guess you look at, but the Colts had their backups out there and all that. Well, so did Detroit.
So the Lions.
So
yeah.
Detroit.
Good
I mean,
point.
it was a level
point.
playing field. And somebody pointed out that the Colts have had 30 yards rushing. They never run the ball in preseason. I can remember back when Chuck would say, "Yeah, we're going to really work on the running game," and they averaged 2.1.
Yeah, okay.
So, and when the fact that you're not playing Taylor at all, and Hines isn't going to play this week, so it's so hard to get a gauge on this running game. All I know is that the kid rushed for 1,800 yards, and what were the Colts, 4th or 5th, whatever they finished last year, and they've been pretty much top 10 with Taylor. But yeah, 174 you can't do. You just can't get gouged like that because you can't do other things you want to do.
Right.
So I'm not overly concerned what they're looking for. Like with the offensive line, you're not looking for a backup line. You're looking for 2 or 3 guys that can do what you need to have done. And as we talked, finding some interior depth is important.
Are you concerned at all that, like last year, the Colts needed to go out and they needed to trade for Matt Pryor? This year, it looks like they might do the same thing again. There's not a wealth of talent there. Maybe it's just the fact that there's positions every year that you're going to have that you're not going to be perfect at, but just for 2 years in a row, it looks like the Colts have offensive line depth issues, that the young guys that they've either drafted or have had in practice squad haven't developed the way that they have thought. Is that concerning at all, or is that just a cost of doing business, do you think, at this point?
Some of it's a cost of doing business because let's keep in mind they went out and got an edge pass rusher, an elite corner.
Yeah.
They got depth with Rodney McLeod. And Brandon Faison may be a starter. So I think whenever you get so much done, there's always something else you didn't do. They did sign Kelly. They did sign Jason Spriggs, which that didn't work.
That's gone. Yeah, he was not.
And Bernhard Raimann, they like him. They like him. We finally noticed this week, and we tend to make a lot out of things. But finally, Kevin Strasser, the position coach, offensive line coach, switched up team reps briefly, but they put Ryman at left tackle, and then they did stuff I thought was strange. They put Braden Smith at right guard and Pryor at right tackle. So they messed up 3 positions instead of leaving, Braden at right tackle, and then putting Pryor, I suppose, at right guard. And then this game Saturday too, you're not going to have Ryan Kelly.
Yep.
Out with COVID, 3rd time on the COVID list, by the way. And that means Danny Pinner's inside at center. So yeah, I won't be shocked. Wasn't Pryor late August? When did they get him last year?
I thought it was late August. I didn't think it was into September.
I don't think so either.
I thought it was before the cut to 53.
And it's a guy that Frank knew.
Yep.
So yeah, I would be totally on board with that. Mm-hmm. And I would hope it's an interior guy because I really think there's not a super big gap between Matt Pryor and Bernhard Raimann. I think Raimann has a ton of upside. Although we talked to Frank, maybe it was about 10 days ago, and he sort of indicated that you better be darn sure your rookie left tackle is ready. I mean, he made it sound like, that's a position where you don't want to have oops, because they're going to get beat anyway. Even the best tackles get beat occasionally. You don't want the left tackle totally botching an assignment and getting your quarterback smothered.
It has to be glaring obvious that he's better than the current starter.
And that's not the case yet.
Yeah, and speaking of the depth on the O-line, let's remember that 2 starters on the O-line last year, they let walk in Fisher and Glowinski, and they just replaced them with existing depth.
Chris Reed, too.
And Chris Reed.
Yeah.
And they just replaced them with existing depth, which is going to take away from your depth going into this year.
Yep.
So hopefully they'll be – I really have a strong feeling they'll either pick up somebody who's cut or make one of these trades. Pryor was traded on August 31st of last year. So there's still some time here.
Right at the end of August.
And that's where a team knows they're either going to cut the guy or maybe we can get a 6? 6th-round pick for him?
I think it was.
Yeah, the Eagles had they had the other guy, Jordan Mailata, really developed into their starting left tackle, and Andre Dillard they drafted really high, and they still wanted to see what he could do. So they had a wealth there of guys at
And
And of course,
tackle.
Lane Johnson on
On the other side. So you don't want to do anything at right tackle. It's like, who cares? So we can get we can get a 6th round pick for this guy. All right, let's send
And
him.
if
was a
I'm,
six,
if I'm
by the
Chris
way.
Ballard, I'm going to give up a 6 or a 7
Yeah, that's fine.
All
for
day.
a guy that's played X number of years and has done it. So we'll see. I won't be surprised like you, Joe, if that happens.
Yeah.
Another thing I love from this game, Nick Cross looks great. I mean, I think he looks ready to start
We
right
see
now.
it every day in practice.
Yep.
Kid can play. He's 20. I've got a grandson older than that, for crying out loud.
What was it? Was it here? Was it on this show? What we made that point, or was it somewhere else that he's going to go out and celebrate his 21st birthday?
The night before.
Yeah, the night before. It was
It
this show.
was,
Wasn't it? Okay,
yeah.
okay. Then we don't have to do that again. Okay. We've made that
I
joke.
would put somebody next to him and say, "Son, if
You're
you're going out,
staying in-house."
you're gonna have a couple of Sprites and some chicken wings, and that's it."
But yeah, I'm so eager to see what he does this year. Y'all know how much I love safeties. Him and Julian Blackman are I love watching them play.
God, he's at another good camp. I mean,
Yep.
Julian Blackman, he just makes plays. He covers ground.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a nice pairing. And we wondered how they were going to
Replace Kari. Yeah, when
Kari
Kari
was not.
What are we doing?
He wasn't just a scrub. He was a
No.
a good player.
Yeah.
And obviously they knew what they were doing. They knew what was coming. Mm-hmm. They did. They may have taken Nick Cross anyway, but they had to know at the time that what was coming with Kahari. And
They might not have signed Rodney McLeod if they knew what was coming.
that could be true.
Yeah.
That could be true. But to have young players like this, and you're going to have them on your rookie contract for 3 or 4 years. That's just huge.
Other players who had a pretty good day, Dio Odangbo finally showing up, doing something, getting 2 sacks against the Lions. Ifeadi Odenibo had a sack and 3 quarterback hits.
Okay, pause. Pronounce them again for me.
Odenibo is how you pronounce his last name.
Yeah,
I don't know. I honestly am not sure on the first name.
No.
Odenibo.
But Dio.
Odangbo. Dang.
I'm going to tell our people on the desk when I send in stories, make sure I've got the right one. But my it's going to kill my autocorrect.
It is, completely.
It's going to kill it.
Like these two names are too similar and too not, quote unquote, not normal. Don't take that for anything more than it actually is. To have the guys on the same roster and screw up Mike Chappell on a weekly
They
basis.
are going to make the roster.
Yeah.
They
I
will.
think
be.
they will.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
we'll see if Banigou does or doesn't. I mean, he's kind of the.
These guys have played their role. Odenibo has played on. He's played his way onto the roster. He has, no doubt. Cornerback Tony Brown had a pretty good day, wearing number 38 instead of 34, like he tried to screw up Mike Chappell in practice today. But
They just mess with it.
like, stop, guys.
I know.
Golly. 2 passes defended, 6 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss.
Did give up a touchdown, but I think he might become the 5th corner.
I think what he does is he can go inside too, and you like to have again that versatility for guys who are on the back end of that roster. And he has been a special teams guy in the past.
He's got speed for days.
Yep,
Which,
I would not be surprised if he is there. I think Dallas Flowers had a pretty good camp too as an undrafted rookie, but I think Tony Brown is just ahead in the pecking order there. When it comes down to it.
And they might be able to keep Flowers on the practice squad.
Yeah, I think they will.
I think, again, you're going to see of the 16 spots on the practice squad, maybe 12 of them are guys you bring back because they have so much more value to you than maybe other teams. Mm-hmm. But, I think it's really going to be interesting to see how they handle the practice squad and how many of these guys come back, because a lot of them, you see value in how they add to the depth at certain positions.
What would you call a great health system? Just a few minutes down the road from Indianapolis, where you can see some of the area's top doctors and healthcare teams in great facilities, including one of the safest hospitals in America, and maybe even save a buck or two on your healthcare. We call it Hancock Health. So if you're looking for smart, safer, affordable care, head east to Hancock Health, where we're making health possible for the people of East Central Indiana and beyond.
What else has stood out from practice this week? Chap, you mentioned the Ryan Kelly news that the Colts are not going to be without their starting Pro Bowl center. Danny Pinner will slide over there for this game, and I imagine it's going to be Will Fries. That's what we've seen fill in at right guard there. And so, and it's trial by fire. I mean, if you're protecting Matt Ryan there, it's no scrub back there that you're trying to keep clean. Get out there, keep him safe as it would be in the regular season.
Against a menacing Buccaneers defensive line.
We just saw it last year. It was one of the best in the league.
And then they added Akeem Hicks from the Bears, who, when healthy, is a stud out there.
And the Bucs have already said that they're going to start all their players who are healthy.
Yep, all their healthy players, including Tom Brady. So
how about that?
Yeah.
Once more into the breach, dear friends. Tom Brady coming to Lucas Oil Stadium. This very well might be the last time Colts fans see Tom Brady here in Indianapolis.
One more chance to boo.
Exactly. Get it out. Get there and warm up the lungs and make sure he knows that you're there. Like the way I feel a lot of people feel about Tom Brady is the line from Anchorman that Vince Vaughn has when Ron Burgundy, Will Ferrell is climbing out of the bear pit and he's got the ladder and he's threatening to push him back in. He's like,
on the forehead.
exactly. He's like, I hate you with every fiber of my being, but I do respect you. He kisses him on the forehead and lets him out eventually. Like that is how so many people here feel about Tom Brady. And I know there's a good swell of people who do not have any respect for him because of the multiple times he's been in trouble. I know. And I'm there with you, chap. But I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that other view is out there as well, that there isn't even that level of respect. But this will be, whether you have it or not, there is not a Colts fan who likes Tom Brady, and so this will be one final time.
Not a true Colts fan.
Yes, no, exactly. There'll be
you try and claim both. You're not in either
It'll
party.
be one final time to be able to, like you said, boo him and make him well aware of your opinion of his.
Probably
abilities.
won't be a video tribute.
I don't think there'll be a video tribute to Tom Brady.
They could do that, and like Irsay could have all the times when bad things happen to him.
Yeah, there you go. That'd be funny.
The Marlon Jackson.
The last one would be
Yes.
Marlon, but there were a lot of times Freddie and Mathis got him, and Peyton went to Foxborough and beat him 40-21.
And here's the deal: you could do that in a preseason game because
Sure,
I would be terrified to do that in a regular season game because that would just tick him off, and then you don't want to play against an upset, mad at you Tom Brady. Like,
Could you imagine social media if Irsay did that? It would explode.
I hope they do. I do. That'd be fantastic.
That'd be fun.
Yes, that'd be amazing if we could make that.
But
happen.
again, you're right. He's a guy that you hate, but you got to respect what he's done, how long he's done it, the level he's done it.
And it'll be a great
Amazing.
test for a defense. A new team, a new defense going against one of the best. Very talented offense. I know Chris Godwin's still working his way back, but Mike Evans is out there. Julio Jones is out there. They got some good players on that offensive side of the ball. So in terms of the actual game, it'll be a great test to kind of see where exactly
Ones on
you
ones,
are.
right?
Yeah, going in. Is there anything you've seen, any trend you guys have noticed in training camp recently that you either hope continues into this preseason game as a sign that it's for real or hope ends? Like, Mike, I know you wrote the story yesterday that Alec Pierce's development is pretty obvious. He's coming along. Reggie Wayne is happy about that. What are you looking for him or anyone else who's stuck out in training camp that is kind of trying to prove themselves?
Yeah, I think I'm convinced the game's not too big for Alec Pierce. I mean, not that there was a concern of that, but his game is eons further along than it was in OTAs and minicamp. And one thing that you just can't ignore is, as much as Frank likes to spread the ball around on offense and have a zillion, they had targets for 20 players against Detroit, which was crazy.
Yeah.
But if he stays healthy, Michael Pittman's going to catch, I don't know, start at 100.
Yeah, start there.
I mean, start at 100. He's probably caught 40% of Ryan's passes in teamwork.
So you're saying I should draft him in my fantasy league?
That would not be a bad decision based on what we have seen in training camp.
And it's not so much that they're just forcing him the ball. It's just that, like, Peyton, we always ask Peyton, well, how do you know who you're going to throw to in games? He said, well, I throw to the guys that are open in practice.
Yeah.
So that you start there, and it's some deep stuff, but it's those quick slants over the middle.
Over the middle all the time.
They love that bubble screen to him.
Yep.
And if Ryan throws 35 passes, Pittman's going to get 9 or 10 targets. He just is. Mm-hmm. So I like that. I like the way they've used Naheem. He's all over the place. Nick Cross we talked about. I like the way Jelani Woods has sort of come back because he really has to play now with Ogletree out.
And he's stepped up since Ogletree
Yes,
got
that's
hurt.
what I'm saying. I don't know whether there was at the time. I didn't know whether Ogletree had passed him or Woods had kind of regressed. I think it was more as much Woods as it was Ogletree, and he looks better. Granson, I don't know if he's a tease. I don't know. He's catching a lot of balls, and then, darn it, he just has a drop or two.
That was what Eric Ebron did
Well,
for an entire year, and he caught like 18 touchdowns.
And Frank said he's fine with it.
Yep.
They're fine with, well, I mean,
Fine, quote unquote.
An occasional drop, as long as you're productive.
Yeah.
You know, people thought that Ebron quit dropping the ball that year. No, he didn't.
No, he did the entire year.
He was probably
But you lived with it.
correct. It's correct.
Yeah.
So that's it's interesting, and then I was kind of pleased that we were reinforced that Stephon Gilmore is still a player. Yeah, holy smokes! And it's been so valuable to have Gilmore so much of the time locked up on Pierce. Pierce, I mean,
That's probably helped him so much.
no question. I'm not going to say he's not going to see a corner better than him this year, but he's ready for whatever.
He's going to see a lot of corners who aren't as good. As him.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I think, and again, knock on wood, Paris Campbell stayed healthy. By and large, has played well. You know, he had at least a drop or whatever it was at Buffalo, but
Was he dealing with a hamstring or something?
one day,
And then he's back.
everybody's antenna went up because here he is, but he missed one day. So again, I'm encouraged. We talked to Reich and Ryan today, and it's funny. We try not to mention certain player whenever we're talking, but Frank is so high on what Ryan brings to the team as a leader, 15 years and all this, and I'll take him in his word, but he just said this guy's got another level. He lifts guys around him, and we'll see. I've said from the start, if Ryan works, this is a good team. It is. And if he struggles for whatever reason, pass protection, whatever, then it's going to be tough because they're not as good as this roster is. You're only as good as your quarterback. They're not so strong everywhere else that they can overcome poor quarterback play.
Joe asks, what are you looking for? And Mike says every player on the 53-man roster. It just goes and names them one after the other right there, just pointing that out.
Well, we won't be seeing Hines or JT
Correct.
or Kwity Paye in this one.
Yeah.
But just about everybody else.
Isaiah Rogers won't play.
Right. He's still in concussion protocol. He's been there for a couple weeks. Maybe you're not hurrying him back.
Yeah.
But,
just let him wait. Because we kind of
that
came
happens
to the
sometimes.
conclusion that Face-On kind of won that number.
He's been out there with the ones more.
Yep.
Yeah. So Face-On's your second starter on the outside. Isaiah Rogers is somebody who can kind of just fill in wherever needed at the
And make
cornerback
plays.
position.
Gosh, he makes plays.
Have you seen it? Has he played in the slot at all? Is that something you've seen him be able to do?
I've not noticed that.
Okay, so he's mostly an outside guy. Might be a little out of position if you try and put him
I'll tell you one
inside.
thing that you've seen more and more is EJ Speed's playing well as that third linebacker. They don't use three linebackers very much. Well, I'm telling you, they're in some sub package, and I mentioned this maybe last week, and I'll Riley come up again with Leonard being out, and he's one of your best players. He just is. But give me the choice, and I'll take Ngakoue, I'll take Stephon Gilmore, and I'll take Buck. Not losing those guys before losing Leonard. I think they're better equipped with this roster. Okariki's playing well, and your guy is playing well. So
my guy.
But they need Shaq back. But
Zaire.
The other guys are so valuable to what they try to do.
And with feeling so good about those other linebackers, probably makes him more comfortable to let Shaq really take his time coming back. Do you think it sounded, I was reading some of the quotes from Wright about putting him on PUP or not. You'd have to miss the first.
Well, leave him on PUP, but for the regular season.
For the regular season,
right.
He'd have to miss not only the first 4 games, but all those practices.
And then he can't
well.
practice.
Can't
exactly.
practice.
Can't practice at all.
That was Frank's point.
And he was talking about maybe if he does miss 4 games, but you bring him back to practice 2 weeks beforehand, he needs some practice time to be able to ready to play. So they might not put him on PUP just for that reason, but he could still miss several games.
I think he's going to miss several. I think he's going to miss a few games. But your points, and that was Frank's point, you need to get him off PUP so he can practice. And let's say they take him off PUP next week, then he's got a week, and then maybe let's say 2 more weeks, but at least he's practicing.
Yeah.
And if you're on PUP, you're on PUP, then the window opens after 4 games. He hasn't practiced since the Friday before Jacksonville in a new defense. So that's Frank's point, is get him out there practicing. And I assume it wouldn't be a big issue for him to clear physical. Teams do it.
You can make it happen.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
How you feel? Can you touch your toes? Can you whatever? But I really think they'll activate him, and then he won't play for maybe Tennessee, maybe Kansas City. I don't know.
Maybe to that point, if they do leave him on PUP, he probably won't be back till week 6.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to be on PUP.
I think that's very realistic if he's on PUP week 6.
Yeah. But I also don't think he's going to be on PUP.
I
could be wrong on that. Maybe I'm just leaning that way.
Because that's the one thing about the rules. The few changes is if you're on PUP or IR, it's 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. And it used to be PUP used to be 6 weeks.
It used to be 6.
IR used to be 8 at one point.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then you could only bring back even just 1 or 2 guys.
It's more. Is it 4 or 6, 8? It's a big number you can bring off of IR.
Yeah.
Back in the day when I did this a long time ago, it was 4 games, but you could bring unlimited people back. So you basically stash people. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's a really interesting decision they make, and it'll tell us so much about where. To me, if they leave him on PUP, in their minds, it's really an extended time he's going to be off.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, don't you think that because it tells you that he's
it means
really
he's nowhere close.
Maybe that's extreme, but I know but he's not close to practicing.
Yeah.
And that's not a good sign.
Mm-hmm. Anything? Obviously, we're going to be looking at the wide receivers, Alec Pierce. Maybe that linebacker battle. We've talked about Doman, Weatherford, Ryan seems very much in the mix. Maybe, whoever plays the best. It seems pretty close. Maybe whoever plays the best this game, or if someone really has a really
which
bad
one
game.
plays better on special teams?
Yep.
Special teams as well.
They did kind of get gashed a bit on special teams against the Lions, and Bubba was asked about that. He's like, they got young guys out there, and they're learning the hard way, and it's true. Like they haven't had those young guys on special teams for the last 4 years since they had a Matt Adams and a George Odom out there, and they were coaching them all up there. Well, they're coaching them all up again. They don't have that same experience. They need guys there, like I said earlier in our discussion of
and does Ashton Newland, like you said, does he see less time because?
Yeah. Because they're definitely going to use him on offense. That's for sure. I think he'll still be out there as a gunner. I really do. I don't think you use your 4th wide receiver enough to say that he can't be a gunner on special teams. So I think he'll still be out there. But nevertheless, that's one guy. You need 10 others to make those units work.
Well, it takes one guy to mess up, and you get gashed.
Yep. Saturday, 7:30 p.m. inside Lucas Oil Stadium. Watch on CBS 4 here in Indianapolis. The Colts take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Could very well likely be Tom Brady's last trip to Indianapolis in his professional playing NFL career.
Because he may come here to vacation.
He might come here to vacation. He might come back in the booth with the Fox booth.
True.
If there's a situation calls for it in the future as he joins Fox Sports as a NFL broadcaster when he finally does decide to retire years and years from now. So it certainly won't put it past Tom to keep his career going and play here again. But as of right now, you just never know. That could be the final time. So we hope you'll join us then. We do appreciate you joining us now for our podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone. Mike Chappell is at mchappell51. Read all his work online, fox59.com, cbs4indy.com, following the Colts throughout the preseason, training camp, and, of course, into the regular season. Joe Hopkins is at Roto Street Joe. I am Dave Griffiths at DaveG_sports. We appreciate you listening. One more preseason game to go before things get real. And we'll talk all about it in future episodes of the Colts Blue Zone podcast.